Let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council, Norman Utilities Authority, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority special meeting of June 14th, 2022. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Studley? Here. Councilmember Schuler? Here. Councilmember Lynn?
Here.
Councilmember Hall?
Here.
Councilmember Tortorello?
Here.
Councilmember Foreman?
Here.
Councilmember Holman?
Here.
Councilmember Peacock?
Here.
Mayor Clark?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1 is consideration of adoption, rejection, amendment, or postponement of the Norman Convention and Visitor Bureau Incorporated budget with detailed annual plan of work. I need a motion to approve or reject the NCVB budget and annual plan of work.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. This is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments regarding this item. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers registered?
No, ma'am.
The motion on the floor is to approve the NCVB budget and annual plan of work. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item 2, consideration of adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of the FYE 2023 City of Norman proposed operating and capital budgets. I need a motion to approve or reject the FYE 2023 operating and capital budgets.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We will consider the amendments one at a time, and I will recognize Councilmember Tortorello for the first amendment.
I move that grammatical and typographical error corrections to the budget documents with no financial impact be made as necessary.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. This is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments regarding this item. Do we have anyone signed up for this one?
No.
Are there any comments from council regarding this motion? Okay, seeing none. The motion on the floor is to approve making grammatical and typographical corrections to the budget documents with no financial impact as necessary. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'll recognize Councilmember Holman for the next amendment.
I move that capital fund projection allocations for transportation be increased by $182,654 to fund a contribution to the Regional Transportation Authority.
Second.
Thank you. This is an opportunity for members of the public to make comment regarding this item. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, ma'am. We will start with Christina Owen.
Hello, I'm Christina from Ward 4. And generally speaking, I wanted to say with transportation, I'm very positive. I think that that's a good thing for us to work towards. My only concern on this is I know with the information online, it said the proposed increase is due to the withdrawal of Midwest City. And I didn't know if you guys had already included Moore's withdrawal, because that was this last week. So I didn't know if you guys had had time to kind of put that piece of the puzzle in there. So I was just a little concerned. I don't know if Norman's going to end up paying a larger piece of this because of Moore and Midwest City departing. So I just wanted to bring up that one concern. Generally, yay, go transportation. I just want to make sure we're not paying too large of a portion if other cities aren't doing something similar.
I have an answer for you,
Okay.
if you'd like it. So that news did happen very recently, and the RTA has not had the opportunity to go back to their budget and figure out what that new allocation may look like. Typically, this comes to council as an amendment to the proposed budget because the proposed budget is published in April, and shortly thereafter, the RTA comes up with its budget for the upcoming fiscal year. With the city of Moore pulling out, we would anticipate one additional conversation with the folks at RTA, and we may need to bring council back one more amendment item for our RTA contribution to keep that program moving forward. So as soon as we know, we'll have that agendized and brought back before council.
And to clarify, my understanding is that when they withdraw, they don't continue to get stops in their cities. So we're not paying for their contribution. We are paying to have our portion of RTA, but it does get more expensive when people leave. Thank you for that comment. Are there any others, Madam Clerk?
Yes. Kevin Tober? No. Kevin Tober? Okay, that was the last one, Mayor.
Okay, are there any comments from council regarding this item?
Yes, this is something I have been involved in for many years, and it's been an agreement, for those that aren't familiar, between Norman, Moore, Oklahoma City, Edmond, Midwest City, and Dell City to bring a metropolitan interconnected public transportation system to this whole area that isn't bound by city limits. And so, yeah, with the news of Midwest City dropping out a few months ago and more dropping out now, I am interested to see how this may evolve. But currently, it would still be us, Dell City, Oklahoma City, and Edmond. And personally, I would absolutely still feel comfortable moving forward with our contribution to this, specifically as long as Edmond and Oklahoma City are still involved, since we are the three largest cities and we are much larger than Midwest City, Moore, and Dell City. So that's my thoughts on it currently. But looking forward to getting an update soon on that.
The motion on the floor is to increase the capital fund project allocations for transportation by $182,654 to fund a contribution to the Regional Transportation Authority. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'll now recognize Councilmember Hall for the next amendment.
I move that projected water reclamation fund revenue be reduced by $700,000. I further move that water reclamation fund transfers to the general fund be reduced by $35,000.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Members of the public to make comments regarding this item. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes. Cynthia Rogers?
Sorry, I'm not used to showing up at 1 o'clock, so I think I missed the beginning of this meeting. So I just had a question as to a clarification on what this takes out of, what projects, what's the implications of this amendment? That's my question. Thank you.
There would be no directly impacted projects planned at this point. The impact would be onto the water reclamation fund balance at this time. But certainly during the course of the fiscal year, there would be the potential for reducing capital projects or other expenses in the wastewater fund if the need be to keep a positive fund balance.
Thank you. Any other people signed up to speak?
No, ma'am.
All right. Are there any comments from council regarding this item? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to reduce the water reclamation fund by $700,000 and the water reclamation fund transfers to the general fund be reduced by $35,000. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast. Passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Lynn for the next amendment.
I move that general fund allocations to the police department be increased by $570,691 and public safety sales tax fund allocations to the police department be increased by $225,850 to fund contractual increases to police salaries.
Thank you. And to clarify again, collective bargaining negotiations for fiscal year 2022 were completed after the city manager's proposed budget was prepared. These salary and benefit increases will be carried forward into FYE 2023. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone? Oh,
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Holman. Do we have anyone signed up to speak on this amendment?
We'll start with Cynthia Rogers.
afternoon again. So I think the public safety sales tax is always very tricky. And I was at the school board meeting yesterday, and our superintendent of Norman Public Schools said, you know, we are owed those monies from the public safety sales tax. So I think it's worth a reminder that that was a defined contribution. It was a defined tax to raise revenues. And now it is a problem if the program that the public safety sales tax was supposed to fund was overpromised, and I think we need to work to do better so that people don't think they were promised something outside of what the funds are. And so I think that's always important for us to remind the public of what they actually voted for, and that was a tax in a special fund. And then if we supplement that fund with other revenues, that's beyond what the taxpayers approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Russell Rice?
My name is Russell Rice, Ward 2, and I'm here just to ask for the PSST funding of 2 dispatchers. I know it's not here, it's not on the paperwork that y'all have, but it is in the PSST, and I would like it to be funded. The dispatchers save lives. Just to let you all know, they're on 12-hour mandatory overtime, 12 hours of mandatory overtime per week, and they have to have a therapy dog to be able to handle working down there. So please keep them in your thoughts and try and fund them. They really do need the additional positions. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Christina Owen?
Christina, Ward 4. Part of my point was to kind of piggyback on what Russell was speaking about. I know I've kind of followed to see where we've been at as far as our staffing in different areas, and I feel like we haven't had a full dispatch team in forever. So I think that that is something that we should prioritize to make sure that we have what they need. I know we've previously had votes about the facility and knowing that it wasn't ADA compliant and things like that, but I don't think we've had a lot of discussion on what the dispatchers need as employees, as people. And definitely part of that is not having as much overtime and having that kind of staffing. I did also want to bring up the fact that it seems like every year we have to subsidize the PSST. We've had 2 votes on it in the past. I think it's to the point that we really need to have another vote for that in the future, either to fully fund or to get rid of it, do something else. I think that that's something that most Normanites would get behind, changing it in some fashion. So I would like to see in the future a conversation about redoing that vote or seeing if there's a different funding mechanism that might make more sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am.
Mayor, I can share some insight. When it comes to our dispatchers, we'd love to take any applications from any potential dispatcher in the room. If you'd care to join our team, it is a very challenging role to fill. And we'll accept applications 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in hopes of keeping all of our dispatch stations filled. So right now, the bodies that we're short, it's not related to any budget constraint. It's just a matter of the numbers in the applicant pool, and getting people interested in that career path. The additional PSST dispatchers, we fully anticipate including those in a future council proposed budget. Once the new Emergency Operations Center is finished, we'll be able to house up to 16 dispatchers. Currently, we have workstations for 6. So we worked mightily to try to keep those dispatch positions filled. It is very challenging. And that subsidy that has been discussed in PSST, as our general fund sales tax rises, so does our PSST sales tax. And I'm not sure if we'll wind up with a subsidy at the end of the current fiscal year or not. But we do recognize we've got a handful of years left in a debt issuance that was done early on in PSST to fund a major upgrade in our communications system and build a new fire station. And that debt service will be paid off in 5 years. And that's about $2.3 million a year that should result in the elimination of future subsidies to PSST. Mr. Francisco, do you anticipate we would have a subsidy in the current fiscal year to PSST?
Mr. Francisco, it is the budget meeting, so if you want to sit at our fancy new table and stop walking back and forth. See, there's one right there.
Our current projections are that we would not require a subsidy in this current fiscal year.
Thank you.
Okay. The motion on the floor, or sorry, are there any council comments regarding this item? Councilmember Studley?
I'm just curious on this increase, just to get this on record. This is a required increase based off negotiations that you had with FOP, is that correct?
That is correct.
So this is in addition to the 865 that you're already adding back? So this is an additional 800,000 on top of that?
Correct.
Yeah, mine was just a clarification that Daryl gave about my understanding of the dispatch positions was that same thing, that we have positions that are funded but are open, that we are trying to get filled. We have positions that are ready to be funded and filled as soon as there's additional space available. That has been my understanding. That's the way I understand it, so I appreciate that. And then that was also my understanding of PSST also, was that this year, because of the healthiness of the budget, that we're not having to subsidize it or transit or any other funds this year, thankfully. Thank you.
I don't know what's going on with this today. The motion on the floor is to increase general fund allocations to the police department by $570,691 and the public safety sales tax fund allocations by $225,850 to fund contractual increases to police salaries. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast. Passes by a vote of 8 to 1. Voting against, Councilmember Studley.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Tortorello for the next amendment.
I move that general fund allocations to the city manager's department be increased by $368,985 for contingency capital outlay expenditures.
Thank you. We have a second. This is an opportunity for the public to make comments. Do we have anyone signed up? No, we do not. Are there any council comments regarding this item? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to increase general fund allocations to the city manager's department by $368,985 for contingency capital outlay expenditures. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast. Passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Studley for the next amendment.
I move that water fund capital project allocations for wells and distribution systems be reduced by $773,000 due to the failure of the water rate increase vote.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Do we have anyone? Madam Clerk.
Cynthia Rogers.
Hello again, still Ward 4. So this is where I'd like for us to remember that the capital improvement funds for water and the water distribution system have two sources. And part of that is from the water ratepayers, and part of that is from new development impact fees. So if you put less in from one side, you have to put more in from another side. So I just want that to stay in the conversation. That is literally one pot of money. And if we don't plan for new growth by adequately collecting funds, then we'll be short. And when revenues are scarce, that means we're less able to give our water utility folks the money they need to continue to give us the great quality water that we get. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Kevin Tober. Just want to make sure he didn't step in. Okay, that is all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember
Yeah, I was just going to see if Chris Mattingly or city manager would like to make some comments about this this specific amendment.
Chris Mattingly, Utilities Director. Yeah, this, just to keep our numbers in the black, we were able to just push the Robinson Water Tower repainting or resurfacing project back 1 year, and that did it for this year. We just chose that one could be pushed back, so.
So it's just delaying a current project another
Absolutely.
year, really, because, okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments from council, the motion on the floor is to reduce water fund capital project allocations for wells and distribution systems by $773,000 due to the failure of the water rate increase vote. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Schuler for the next amendment.
I move that allocations to the city manager's department be increased by $131,847 to fund an internal auditor position.
Thank you. This is an opportunity for the public to make comment. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Are there any comments from council regarding this item? Councilmember Schuler.
Just want to make a clarification that this is contingent on the vote of the people for our charter change vote, correct? City manager, city attorney?
And there was a conversation among council that in the event the voters did not approve the charter amendment for the position to report to council, council would have the flexibility to approach the conversation from two different directions. You could hire an internal auditor to report to the city manager, or those dollars would be available that we could contract for audit-specific functions that may present themselves to council throughout the year. So provides you with flexibility to move in any direction the voters see appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a brief comment about this amendment. This internal auditor position was one that was first proposed by Councilmember Castleberry some time ago. And one of the features about hiring an internal auditor was to have it directly report to the city council. So while I really appreciate the flexibility built in to be able to hire an internal auditor one way or another, I take seriously the recommendation from the Charter Review Commission that also recommended that this particular position be one that reported directly to the city council.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments from council regarding this item, the motion on the floor is to increase the city manager's department allocations by $131,847 to fund an internal auditor position. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion passes by a vote of 7-2. Voting against, Councilmember Lynn, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. I would now like to recognize Councilmember Peacock for the next amendment.
I move that general fund allocations be increased by $100,000 for pattern zoning programs.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
This is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments. Do we have anyone signed up, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am.
Seeing none, are there any final comments from council? Councilmember Hall.
I also would just like to state my support for this particular amendment. Councilmember Peacock, Councilmember Holman, and I have been working on this concept of pattern zoning and how to integrate it into our current zoning practices in Norman. And we have some very specific ideas of where we could start and see what the success of pattern zoning would be. And I'll be discussing that a little bit later when we discuss the Center City Form-Based Code agenda item. but in full support of moving this forward.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, the motion on the floor is to increase general fund allocations by $100,000 for pattern zoning programs. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Hall for the next amendment.
I move that capital fund project allocations be increased by $360,000 to fund improvements to the Miller Avenue curb and sidewalk between Alameda Street and Classen Boulevard within the Miller Historic District.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have anyone signed up from the public to speak on this amendment? Seeing none, Councilmember Hall.
Also would like just to make a brief comment about this particular amendment and give our public some context as to why this appears here this year. This is a project that has been discussed and also agreed to be done by the City of Norman for several years now, but because of the original funding source was the Community Development Block Grant Program, just did not have enough resources available for the scale of the project and the disrepair that these sidewalks are in. So to me, this was a way to keep one of the promises that we made to our residents by finding an additional funding source. And we're fortunate enough this year to be able to add this and get it funded.
Thank you. Seeing no other council comments, the motion on the floor is to increase capital fund project allocations by $360,000 to fund improvements to Miller Avenue curb and sidewalks between Alameda Street and Classen Boulevard within the Miller Historic District. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd now recognize Councilmember Studley for the next amendment.
I move, I move that capital fund project allocations be increased by $425,000 to fund a walking trail that connects the Oakhurst and Wood Creek neighborhoods to the Walmart Shopping Center.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Do we have any members of the public signed up to comment on this one? Seeing none. Comments from council regarding this item? Councilmember Studley.
I just want to make a quick comment about this. If you live in my ward, in Ward 1, Oakhurst is kind of deserted from everything, and so this will allow people that walk in Oakhurst to be able to come across into Wood Creek through the park that already exists and get over to the neighborhood Walmart. With reduction in some of the busing system that we have seen in the current proposal, I think this will really help. It will also help some of the kids get over from the Wood Creek addition to use the beautiful park that's in Oakhurst. So we're really excited about this, and hopefully the neighborhood will be excited as well. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to increase capital fund project allocations by $425,000 to fund a walking trail that connects the Oakhurst and Wood Creek neighborhoods to the Walmart Shopping Center. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Peacock for the next amendment.
Thank you. I move that capital fund project allocations be increased by $1,500,000 to fund a Carter Alameda Stormwater Park.
Do we have a second? Thank you. Do we have anyone from the public signed up to make comments on this amendment, Madam Clerk?
Cynthia Rogers.
Afternoon again. This is actually my neighborhood. As you recall, this was where a homeless camp was and then was removed. At least the people were removed. So my questions about this is I'm generally pro anything we can do to mitigate stormwater impacts. I'm not actually all that informed, or, my gut doesn't tell me that as an educational project, and I don't know how much the extra funds in this are for educational parts. I don't think that's probably the most effective way to educate people about stormwater stuff. Not that I wouldn't love a park within spitting distance of my home. So my big question is, will this project actually mitigate flooding downstream from there? And with our stormwater resources being so scarce, is this the highest, best use of our funds? And I acknowledge that I would love a stormwater park across the street from me. Thank you.
Mr. O'Leary, and we think this could literally be phase one with a whole lot more amendments and opportunities. This was actually initiated by Dr. Carrie Evenson. And boy, was she prepared on the subject and has departed us. But we have a new stormwater manager in the house. And Mr. O'Leary, share your thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And yes, Jason Murphy, our new Stormwater Program Manager, is here with us if you have further detailed questions. I think it was about a year ago we completed the design of this concept park by the firm of PDG Architects. Did a really good job. Worked really closely with our Parks Department. This is really more of a park than it is a stormwater program, frankly. It'll serve much more in that purpose. But in the design, there is a small stormwater detention basin, open grass-lined basin with lots of educational features. So if the question is, will it do significant mitigation downstream, the answer is no. Will it do some? The answer is yes. It will be there'll be some minor mitigation of stormwater flood control through the detention basin process that we use in every one of our new developments and occasionally on city projects. So it does have a stormwater element to it. Would also mention that the $1.5 million cost estimate came from our design architects, and we think it's a pretty good estimate. But of course, the next step, of course, would be to take the bids and actually bring in the project. But my recollection, and Daryl's right, Dr. Evenson did a wonderful job coordinating the design of this. But my recollection was that the $1.5 million will give us a really good start, if not a completion of the vision of the design of the park.
Councilmember.
So this is a project that I think has, we have a rare opportunity right now to move forward with a very creative project and a type of park that does not exist in Norman. This is a parcel that is at the corner of Alameda and Carter, as we've stated, and a very, very small portion of this parcel is actually buildable. And the reason for that is because it is in the Bishop Creek watershed. The Bishop Creek runs right through this parcel, as well as through most of urban core Norman. The riparian area in this part of Bishop Creek is impaired and damaged, and that, does not bode well for our future. And when we first started discussing, okay, what could we actually do with this corner property, and what opportunities did we have to create an urban green space, but have it be something a little bit more special than that? And so we do have preliminary design work. There are different components to it. One of them is an educational component because of some of the design features in the park to allow our youngest and our oldest residents to understand a little bit more about what stormwater mitigation is all about and how important it is to protect riparian areas in our watershed areas across Norman. So this is going to be a very low impact project. It's going to be accessible to everybody in Norman. It's going to have a natural playground element to it that does not involve any kind of, would be no metal, no, standard, what you would expect of standard playground equipment, but there are a lot of creative designs across the country for these kind of natural elements to create a playground for children. So it does play, I think, a different and new role in helping to educate our community about stormwater mitigation and the importance of protecting our watersheds, which, in my opinion, is one of our highest priorities to help our residents understand why we need to continue to move forward and consider a stormwater utility, and also to just understand that what we do every day impacts our watershed in the beginning. And I really understand the argument or the point of view of, is this a highest priority project? Well, this was a project that's currently earmarked in ARPA funding, and because we have a rare opportunity this year, because we've been blessed with some surplus funding, we have an opportunity to go ahead and move forward with this project, and it also allows us to free up more ARPA funding dollars for other critical stormwater projects that we do have earmarked as well. So to me, this is a better use of the resources that are available to this year and allows us to concentrate our ARPA funding, which we know is a lock on being able to provide stormwater for stormwater projects. It allows for more funding for those projects.
Thank you. Seeing no other council comments, the motion on the floor. Oh, Councilman Berlin stuck in.
I just want to make sure that in my head where I know where this is at. This is the property that was donated to the city, and then the city went and cleared it out.
Correct.
That's it. That's all. I just want to make sure, because I've been there when it was not cleared out, and to see it turn into something usable and good would be pretty awesome. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilmember Studley.
As much as I appreciate what this does, that it is a stormwater project and it is going to help with that a little bit, as Mr. O'Leary pointed out, this is a park. At the end of the day, we displaced many of our homeless residents from this park who had been there for years and years without a place for them to go. And then the one place that we did offer them, which was the warming shelter on Comanche, is now being shut down. So they really have no place to go. And so of sheer principle, I think the 1.5 million could be used towards our homeless community instead of to add another part to Norman. So I will be voting no on this out of principle. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other council comments, the motion on the floor is to increase capital fund project allocations by $1,500,000 to fund a Carter Alameda Stormwater Park. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion passes by a vote of 8 to 1. Voting against, Councilmember Studley.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Schuler for the next amendment.
I move that the capital fund project allocations be increased by $30,000 to fund historical markers.
Right. Thank you. Councilmember Foreman. Are there any comments from the public regarding this item?
Sorry, sometimes my eyes cross on this line. Christina Owen.
Christina, Ward 4 again. I just wanted to say that I'm in support of this. I think it's a great idea. And depending on the information that we have on the historical markers, this may actually check off a few boxes of some of the recommendations that we had in the 2019 Inclusive Community Subcommittee. So I know the Human Rights Commission, I'm sure, would be very interested to see what kind of information will be on the historical markers. Hopefully something like acknowledging, what tribal land that we're on in Norman and things of that nature to make sure that we're getting the full history of Norman that we can celebrate and share on with everybody. So I just wanted to give my thumb of support for this because I think it is a good idea. And I think it would, like I said, maybe potentially cross off a couple things off of our to-do list. So thank you.
Thank you. Have anyone else signed up? All right, Councilmember Schuler.
Just to that point, we did get, and I wish I was better prepared to tell you exactly which date we saw this in a study session but we, if you remember, we allocated the same amount last fiscal year for, I believe, 4 or 5 signs. And there are a few that are done, but there have been, how many completed, do we know? 3 completed, and then 2 more in progress under the current program. And I wish I had the topics written down, but we were pleased with the representation of the topics of the history, and that was one of the concerns that us and many of the other council members were to make sure that we are representing the history of Norman as accurately as possible, and making sure that when we're selecting which locations and kind of topics to be kind of imprinted on these signs, that those were taken under consideration. So I would be happy to kind of make sure that the Human Rights Commission is being included in some of those conversations, and that we can discuss with the other members of the community that are helping to kind of spearhead these.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall.
Yes, I just wanted to add to Councilmember Schuler's comments and appreciate your input too, also, Ms. Owen. This will be the second year to fund this project, and personally, I've been very pleased with the topics that have been selected. So for example, 2 of the markers that have been done this year honor the work that was done at Griffin Memorial Hospital and a history of that. And it's in a very sensitive text that I think the community would appreciate. And one of the other ones is to honor the courage of Ada Lois Scipio Fisher and her role in Norman. So that definitely is the direction that we're moving. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Holman.
Yes, I agree with the comments of my colleagues about the feedback from council during this process has been that trying to make sure we recognize Norman, the city of Norman's history, but also the history of the land that our city currently occupies and what's been here before and who. And I've only seen one of them so far in person, and that one is in Ward 7, just south of Lindsay Street on Classen on the west side of the road. Is a marker that talks about the location where Norman, the city of Norman, was actually founded. A tree where a name was etched in the tree, Norman's Camp, and that tree, from what they believe, was very close to that location right off Bishop Creek. So I've seen that one so far. I haven't seen the other ones in person yet, but I found that one to be very informative, and I would definitely encourage everybody to stop by and check it out if you get a chance, if you're in the Lindsay and Classen area. Thanks.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to increase capital fund project allocations by $30,000 to fund additional historical markers. Council members, you may cast your votes.
Have been cast and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Foreman for the next amendment.
I move that the capital fund project allocations be increased by $60,000 to fund the construction of a sidewalk on Rock Creek Road from Porter Avenue to Hawthorne Place addition.
We have a second. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, are there any comments from council regarding this item? Councilmember Foreman.
So this is the part of Rock Creek where students I see every morning walk in knee-high grass to school, and I feel very bad for them. I see mothers trying to push strollers through there. For some reason, this little piece is not paved, and so this is what that would do. So it's for the students, it's for the moms, it's for the families and the walkers. So please support it. Thank you.
It is also for the joggers. As someone who lived in that area, I have run that little path many time and picked up trash along there as well. So this is awesome to see this getting taken care of. Seeing no other comments from council, the motion on the floor is to increase capital fund project allocations by $60,000 to fund construction of a sidewalk on Rock Creek Road from Porter Avenue to the Hawthorne Place addition. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Holman for the next amendment.
All right. This one's a lengthy one here. It's the longest one, so bear with me. In order to implement the transfer of the meter services function from the Finance Department in the General Fund Maintenance and Sewer Line Maintenance Divisions in the Utilities Enterprise Funds, I move that general fund allocations to the Finance Department and related cost allocation revenue from the utility enterprise funds be decreased by $538,703. Water fund allocations to the Water Line Maintenance Division be increased by $314,337, and related cost allocation payments to the general fund be reduced by $379,247. Water reclamation allocations to the Sewer Line Maintenance Division be increased by $261,358, and related cost allocation payments to the general fund be reduced by $75,958, and sanitation fund allocations to the Water and Water Reclamation Divisions be decreased by $36,992, and related cost allocation payments to the general fund be decreased by $83,499.
Second.
Okay. Do we have anyone from the public signed up to speak on this amendment?
No, ma'am.
Members? Guessing Cynthia Rogers, perhaps?
It's not, no, I don't have it checked, but.
All right, thank you. Okay, seeing no comments from council regarding this item. The motion on the floor is to make the necessary increases and decreases to implement the transfer of the meter service function from the Finance Department to the Utilities Enterprise Fund. Council members, you may cast your votes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Lynn for the next amendment.
I move that public transportation fund allocations for transit and parking administration be increased by $750,000 to fund an on-demand turnkey micro-transit program.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Holman is the second. Do we have anyone from the public sign up? Any comments from council regarding this item? Councilmember Holman.
A lot of folks have been asking us to explore ideas for microtransit to help support our bus system, but also to help our ADA friends have a more on-demand service. So that's the intent. Councilmember Lynn and Councilmember Studley have really brought this one forward a while back, and we've spent the entire year literally discussing it. So this is kind of a starting point to help bring about an additional transportation resource for our community to help fill in the gaps where our fixed route bus system can't go, isn't going to go, isn't planned to go, and help offer that more on-demand service for our folks with transportation obstacles, hurdles, things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Studley.
I just want to kind of piggyback off of what Councilmember Holman said, and that is something that we have been working on since retreat last year, whenever Councilmember Lynn brought this up about a ride program called VIA. And I'm really excited that we're going to pilot this program here in Norman. And if you are watching Richard Anderson, I hope this is a start for you in Norman. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other comments from council on this item, the motion on the floor is to increase public transportation fund allocations for transit and parking administration by $750,000 to fund an on-demand turnkey micro-transit program. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast. And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. This is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments regarding the budget as amended. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
No, ma'am.
Dr. Rogers, do you want to come up since we missed you on the last one? All right. Well, I will miss that. So you'll just have to have me over for coffee or something. Okay, seeing no comments from the public, the motion on the floor is to approve the FYE 2023 operating and capital budgets as amended. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the budget as amended passes unanimously.
Thank you, and I want to thank you all for being here. I know this was an interesting time to have a budget meeting, but we want to make sure that we have plenty of time in the event things change, which has been known to happen in Norman. So thank you for that. We will be back here at 5 o'clock for session, and our regular meeting will begin at 6:30. This meeting is adjourned.